America has long been called a nation of immigrants, a land of opportunity, hope, and new beginnings. Immigrants have built railroads, started new businesses, brought new ideas, and enriched the culture of the nation. But immigration has always been complex, with the courts playing a central role in deciding who can stay, who must leave, and how laws are applied. Sometimes, these decisions protect rights and expand freedoms. Other times, they restrict opportunity and separate families. In America, the journey of immigrants has always been intertwined with the courts, where laws are written, decisions are made, and lives are forever changed. Between 1820 and 1920, over 30 million immigrants arrived in the United States, mostly from Europe, including Ireland, Germany, and Italy. At the same time, Asian immigrants came to the West Coast, often facing hostility and legal restrictions. While Congress passed the laws governing who can enter, the courts played an important role in interpreting those laws, deciding how policies were applied and what rights immigrants could claim. By 1965, the Immigration and Nationality Act ended the old national quotas, opening the door to immigrants from Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean. Around this time, courts began hearing more cases involving refugee protections and their rights in the country, giving judges a larger role in shaping how immigration laws were enforced. Today, federal courts continue to decide who must enter, stay, or be deported, reviewing thousands of cases every year and influencing the lives of millions across the country. In 1886, the Supreme Court heard Yigvo v. Hopkins, a case exposing how local laws were used to control and exclude immigrants. More than 200 Chinese laundry owners in San Francisco were denied permits under city ordinances that looked neutral but were enforced almost entirely against them. The courts ruled that the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause protects all persons and that using ordinances to target one group violates the Constitution. This decision was far more than a win for one community. It proved that judicial branches can step in when laws were applied with bias. Yigvo v. Hopkins became one of the earliest examples of courts challenging discrimination, setting a precedent that still influences immigration cases today. In 1898, the Supreme Court decided United States v. Wong and Mark, a landmark case for citizenship and immigrant rights. Wong and Mark was born in San Francisco to Chinese parents who could not naturalize. After a trip to China, he was denied re-entry by officials claiming he wasn't a citizen. The court rejected this and ruled that the 14th Amendment guarantees birthright citizenship to nearly everyone born on U.S. soil, regardless of parent status. The ruling made it clear that anyone born in the United States is a citizen, regardless of their parents' nationality. It confirmed that belonging in America is defined by the Constitution, not ancestry. More than 100 years later, Wong and Mark still guides how courts interpret citizenship and immigrant rights. In 1982, the Supreme Court heard Plyer v. Doe, a case about undocumented children in Texas, many of which were from Mexico and Central America and had lived in these local communities for years. In 1975, Texas had passed a law letting schools deny undocumented children enrollment, leaving their futures hanging on immigration contingency they couldn't control. The Supreme Court struck down that law, ruling that the 14th Amendment protects any person within a state's borders. The justices warned that shutting children out of school would create a permanent underclass and harm the nation. The case Plyer v. Doe made it clear that basic opportunities, especially education, cannot be denied based on immigration status. In American Street, Fabiola's journey shows how immigration and its process can shape every part of a person's life. When her mother is detained, she realizes just how powerless immigrants can feel. Fabiola says, "Immigration laws aren't fair, but they decide everything about us." This quote shows how powerless immigrants can feel when their lives are controlled by rules and decisions far beyond their control. It highlights that in the world of American Street, safety, family, and opportunity aren't guaranteed. They are determined by the system, not by the people living through it. Her struggle is even clearer when she admits, quote, "We leave the airport, it feels like I'm leaving part of me behind. A leg, an arm, my whole heart." Ibby's a boy uses Fabiola's heartbreak to show that immigration isn't just paperwork. It's fear, separation, and the pain of losing the people you love. Although set in Detroit, Fabiola's experience reflects real-life situations in cities like Chicago, where many immigrant teens navigate school and daily life while facing constant pressure from ICE. American Street reminds us that behind every law is a human life full of struggle, hope, and the fight to belong. Today, ICE enforces detention and deportation, but its actions are often unjust, targeting people unfairly and engaging in racial and national profiling. Lawsuits challenge overcrowded facilities, long detentions without hearings, and violations of due process. In 2025, at least 21 people died in ICE custody, the deadliest year in 2 decades, showing the real human cost of these policies. With ICE holding such broad power, conflict with the courts is inevitable. Modern court decisions keep enforcing the right to legal representation and humane treatment, highlighting that immigration is not just about the rules, It's about justice, fairness, and protecting human lives. The United States is a country built on immigration, with newcomers shaping communities, the economy, and culture, while courts have determined how they are treated. From Nick Vo versus Hopkins to Wong and Mark and Plyer versus Doe, the judicial branch has balanced government power, protected rights, and defined who belongs. Today, with ICE enforcement and ongoing court challenges, the struggle for fairness continues. Despite these challenges, immigration remains essential to the nation's growth, economy, and identity. Even in difficult times, the contributions of immigrants continue to sustain and strengthen the United States, leaving it clear that the nation's strength, innovation, and future depend on welcoming and supporting immigrants.